try to be standing, then you don't fall asleep so easily. Yeah. I say I try to be standing so that you don't fall asleep so easily. Colleagues, ladies and gentlemen, once more. Thank you to the Museum of Architecture for inviting me to give this short lecture about contemporary Norwegian architecture. Snøhetta is the most famous architectural firm from Norway today. But just to remind you that we also have other interesting architecture in and from Norway, I give you this short introduction before the main speaker of today, Lillebull, will tell you about the works of Snøhetta. I will show you some examples of contemporary Norwegian architecture, but I start far back in time in Norway. About 10,000 years ago, the ice melted and the people followed the animals heading north and settled in the new land. The hunters built their tents, the farmers launched stretched houses like this one, and some people lived in caves. Today, the population of Norway is very close to 5 million people. 1.4% of the country is built area and 3.2% is cultivated land. And the rest consists of mountains, forest, water and ice. In average, only 16 persons are living per square kilometer. Norway is a long stretched country with a long coast to the west and a long border to our neighbors in the east, Sweden, Finland and Russia. 79% of Norwegians are living in cities and densely populated areas. This is Oslo. Many people have not only their home but also a cottage in the mountains or by the coast. The nature always supplied us with more than enough wood, and Norwegians always had a special preference for this versatile building material. Also today, a lot is being built in wood. The state churches from the Middle Age are the most important contribution from Norway to the world architecture history. There are only 27 of them left in Norway and one in Poland. Wernisaż church was bought by King Friedrich Wilhelm IV and rebuilt by Karpacz. Today perhaps the oil platforms are our most important building technological contribution. Due to a lot of fish in the ocean and a high price on dried fish or stockfish, there early occurred many fishing villages along the coast. In many areas of Norway, the landscape is extremely rough and it was difficult to cross. Often it was easier to find the way along the coast with boat. Because of this, there are many important trading towns situated along the coast, like Bergen, that was the largest city in Norway until 1830s. Today, Oslo is the capital of Norway, with the castle and the king and 600,000 inhabitants. It's a bit smaller than Wrocław, I think. You have 630 or something. Yeah. This photo is from the National Day, the 17th of May. In 2008, the National Museum Architecture opened, where I'm working as a senior curator. This museum consists of an old bank building designed by Christian Heinrich Grosch in 1830, and a new exhibition pavilion by Sverrefjell, and he was also the architect of the renovation of the bank building. Some of you have been there. Yeah. This is one picture from the main hall, where you see the bookstore and the cafe. And here you see the pavilion from inside. Sverrefjell is Norway's most famous architect in the 20th century. He died in February 2009, 84 years old. In 1997, he was awarded the Pritzker Architecture Prize, the highest award an architect can obtain, the so-called Nobel Prize for Architects. And it's impossible to give a lecture about contemporary Norwegian architecture without starting with him. Here you see a picture from the opening of the National Museum Architecture. To the left, Queen Sonja in wheelchair, Sverrefjell, beside him, King Harald, and a lot of other important persons. The National Museum Architecture was opened with a large exhibition about Sverrefjell, and here you see another version of this exhibition in the Biennale in Venice in 2008, in the Nordic Pavilion designed by Sverrefjell in 1962. The Nordic Pavilion in the Biennale Park in Venice was one of the first buildings of Sverrefjell. The pavilion is the result of a Nordic competition he won. He had three main goals for this building. He wanted a large open exhibition space without columns, with a natural light but without direct sunlight. And he wanted to keep the old trees on the site. All this he fulfilled by making the roof as a grid of high and narrow concrete beams. This is Villa Skreiner in Oslo. The house is built in a simple wooden construction. Sverrefjell was very inspired by Japanese wooden building tradition at that time, and he called the house homage or chaton. And Sverrefjell designed all the inbuilt furniture and also tables and chairs. And the house has a human scale that really makes you feel very well. The first museum Sverrefjell designed is the Hedmark Museum at the Domkirkegården by Hamar. The museum is built where one has found the ruins of an archbishop's residence from the Middle Age. This old barn with old stone walls existed, but Sverrefjell has transformed it to a museum. The main element in this museum is a system of concrete ramps leading you through the building. From these ramps you see the excavation site from above, outside and inside the building. An architectural walkway that connects past and present. This rich articulated roof construction in wood is designed by Fjell. The construction is placed at the top or beside the old stone walls in respect for the history. In the same way, the respect for the history is shown by the main entrance. Here a large glass panel is mounted in front of the stone wall. The solution for the windows on the other side is the same. This is possible of course because the museum is only open in the summer, and you have no insulation problems. Sverrefien's way of exhibiting the old objects reminds us of the architecture of Carlo Scarpa in Italy, and Fien was for sure inspired by him. And one of the most famous quotations from Sverrefien is from the time he worked on this project. If you are running after the past, you will never catch up with it. Only by confronting it with the present, you will get in dialogue with the past. The architecture of Sverrefien is often called poetic modernism. His earliest buildings are strictly modernistic, but in addition they have a poetic dimension that makes them to something more than only pure modernism. The Glacier Museum belongs to its livelier projects and architecture telling stories. This museum is situated at the end of the fjord, where the surrounding mountains are building a bold form underneath the largest glacier in Europe, Jostedalsbreen. The stairs leading up to the roof are almost as important as the entrance between them. Up there you have an impressive view towards Jostedalsbreen. And when you enter into the building, it's like walking into the glacier itself. With the National Museum architecture and the Gyldendal House, which you see here, also in Oslo, Sverrefien ended his career the best possible way. Sverrefien has been the most important professor in the School of Architecture in Oslo from 1971 until he retired in 1995, and has influenced the whole generation of Norwegian architects. Jensen and Skodvin is an important office in the Fien School, if we can talk about that. He is seen together with two other architects. They have designed the Mortensrud Church on the rocky side with many pine trees in Oslo. Here you see the main entrance and the bell tower. The church has a steel and glass wall on the outside, but on the inside it's in some distance from this wall. It's a second wall, a steel construction carrying the roof, and in some parts filled with stone slates, where the daylight is filtered through. Part of the rock is penetrating the floor. This picture is taken from the gallery. Carl Viggo Holmenberg is also working in the tradition of Sverrefien. This is one of the best-known paintings belonging to the National Museum. It's called Winter Night by Rondone, painted by Harald Solberg. At about the same place where Solberg stood when he painted it, Carl Viggo Holmenberg has built a viewing platform for people driving this famous tourist route. The concrete railing is curving around the trees. This project is one of many projects designed by young architects for the state road authority. Some of them are viewing platforms or points, other places to take a break or relax for the driver, and so on, all situated along the most beautiful tourist roads. These commissions are the most important that has been done in Norway to give young architects the possibility to show their talents. Two other spectacular viewing points I showed you are situated on the west coast, where you find our famous mountains and fjords. This is called Stegastein. It's designed by the architects Todd Saunders and Tommy Williamson. It is constructed like a bridge construction and is in laminated wood and steel here, seen from the side and from below. And I'm happy they have a sheet of glass here in the front now. It wasn't here. And this is another viewing point from the famous road, the Trollstig Road by Geiranger, designed by the Berlin-based office called 3RV. The platform next to the road where the waterfall is on one side. The last two I showed you are from the north of Norway. A wooden ramp leading down to a viewing point. This is by Steinfjorden at Senja and designed by the architects called Kohl. Now this is a wooden construction. Most of them are with benches and tables in a beautiful setting. It's designed by the landscape architect Inge Dahlman, and it's situated at Reine in Lofoten. But back to our museum. This summer we showed the exhibition Contemporary Norwegian Architecture. We produce this kind of exhibition every 5th year. And as told, the touring version of this exhibition will be in Krakow next year. This time the exhibition is presenting 38 build projects from the last 5 years. And they are grouped under 9 different themes. Of course, buildings of Snøhetta are part of this exhibition. And I have chosen projects from the same themes where Snøhetta is represented. Under governmental intentions you find the opera and ballet in Oslo. And you also find the new Holmenkollen ski jump. Holmenkollen is a national symbol rich on tradition and history. The World Ski Championship in Oslo last winter. For that it was rebuilt and it has already become a winter icon. I thought I should find out who won that jumping competition. Was it someone from Poland? Oh.
Denmark.
Yeah. Now I mean the competition, the jumping competition. No, it wasn't someone from Poland, otherwise you would have known. The steel structure stands between 2 foundations and looks like a sculpture floating over the landscape and just touching it on 2 points. It is new that we show projects built in Norway by foreign architects in this exhibition. But we decided to do so because it has been a lot of international competitions in Norway in the last years, according to the competition rules of the European Union that are also practiced in Norway. Snøhetta won the opera competition, but not the Holmenkollen competition. This was run by the young Belgian architect Julian de Smet, and he has his office in Denmark. That's true. Here you see the entrance to Svalbard Global Sea Vault designed by Berlin Consult. It's a very small building to see overground. It was built to store plant seeds from clean banks worldwide, maintaining seed reserves in deep botanical hibernation. This takes the treats of genetic modification and climate change seriously, manifested in a subterranean construction and marked by the blinking light of the art installation in the entrance. This is my favorite project by Snöta, with the lovely undescribing name to balloon, and you have seen it in the exhibition. An author of the installation project, located on the playground of a kindergarten, this unusual structure gives shelter for the weather and can be used for bonfires, storytelling and play in the kindergarten. The cost-efficient design by Haugen Sohar Architects uses short planks of pine hardwood recycled from a nearby building site. Another project by Snöta under the theme called the Local Cultural Institution, the Petterdass Museum. In the same group you find the Hamsun Center by Stephen Holm. It is situated at Hamar, an island in North Norway, where Knut Hamsun grew up. Here stands a mythical architecture figure with strong spatial and sensual qualities. The architect's inspiration of Hamsun's is from Hamsun's literature, and the Norwegian building tradition has been given a distinct and highly symbolic expression. Next to Hamsun Center in the exhibition you find the Tautra Maria Monastery by Jensen and Skovlin architects. The building of a monastery is a rare construction assignment in our time. Earlier it was more of them, like here. The new monastery is placed close to the ruins of a medieval monastery. Traditional building forms and materials have been developed with the aim of innovative construction that attend to the quality of the landscape and the shifting light. Snöta has a lot of projects outside Norway under construction. This is one of them, King Abdullah's Center of Knowledge and Culture. And in our next 5-year exhibition, I'm sure you will find some projects by Snöta under the theme Norwegian architecture abroad. This time you find the Element House in Anyang Park in Seoul, in Korea, by Rintala Egerton Architects. They are living and have their office in Norway, but they are from Finland and Iceland. This pavilion is part of an art park as a place for contemplation, resting and viewing. The cubic volumes in steel and wood have been put together in a geometrically clarified composition. This is the Norwegian Embassy in Kathmandu in Nepal by Kristin Jansen Architects. The embassy's spatial program is well conceived and fully adapted to a cramped lot. The building has local roots and can be regarded as a synthesis of Nepalese tradition and Western architectural ideas. But it's built of local materials and by local workers. These small houses are called butterfly houses. They are built in Thailand on the border to Burma, designed by Team Tegnestua. The objective of each dormitory building is to recreate something special and home-like for refugee children from Burma. The houses are constructed of local materials in cooperation with local craftsmen. The project was initiated by architectural students who sought to expand the traditional architectural roles. Now we have seen just a few projects from our exhibition in Oslo, and if you want to see the whole exhibition, you have to visit Krakow next year. Before I give the floor to Linn Bull, just a short presentation of her and a few additional words about Snøhetta. Linn Bull is managing director of the Snøhetta office in Oslo and has been working by Snøhetta since 2005. She has her architectural diploma from NTNU in Trondheim, and before he started her work by Snøhetta, she has been working 8 years by Lund and Slotto Architects and 3 years in the Academy of Architects by the Norwegian Architect Association. And a few words about Snøhetta. In 2004 they won the competition for the September 11 Memorial Museum Pavilion and set up an office in New York. And today Snøhetta has about 115 employees from 15 nations, I think, or maybe more, and project in many parts of the world. And Snøhetta is led by two of the founders, Craig Dykers and Kjetil Tredal Thorsen, and with 4 additional partners. Thank you for your attention. Linn and the floor.
In Polish, so I'll speak to English if you don't mind. While he's obtaining the computer, I'll take the opportunity to thank you for inviting Snøhetta to come to Poland, and especially here, thank you to the museum for hosting our exhibition. It has become very beautiful. We are very proud to see how you have organized it, and it looks exactly the way we hoped. So thank you for that, and thank you to the Ministry of Foreign Affairs also for organizing it from your side, and of course in collaboration with the Architectural Museum in Oslo, Norway. So I have to do this manually, unfortunately, but today I will tell you a bit about Snøhetta, the way we work, where the name comes from, and a bit of our projects, a small selection. It's not everything that you see out in the exhibition. I tried to find some other projects. I was a bit worried, Eva, that you would show all our projects, but we still have some left. Now I should change here as well. Just a small abruption, sorry about that. Technical. Well, while he's trying to fix the problem, I can tell you the story of the name Snøhetta. The name comes from a mountain in Norway called Snøhetta. The reason why the company took the name is because in the first years they were situated in the attic on top of a large restaurant called Dovre, and that's the area where this mountain is situated. So, since they were in the attic, they took the name from the highest point. But of course, Snøhetta has become a more symbolic meaning to us as we have grown further. And of course, the symbolic towards the nature and the connection to the nature is very important to Snøhetta.
Czy ktoś potrafi obsługiwać Maca po norwesku?
Okay, Snøhetta is an integrated practice. We are both architects, interior architects, landscape architects, designers. We have a brand department, and we have a very close collaboration with artists and, of course, technologists in all our projects. We like an achievement, and we always seek new challenges. Every year we have a trip, a volunteer trip to the mountain called Snøhetta for the employees to take a challenge. And of course, we always like to reach the top. Because it gives us an important perspective towards the world. And of course, beautiful landscape as well. Our office is situated in Wernisaż, quite close to the opera. And for us it's a big importance, the relation to the water and to the seafront, because the identity towards the landscape is important to Snøhetta. We have two offices today. The one is based in Oslo, where we are around 80 people. And the other one is in New York, that was formed about 5 years ago. And they have now grown from 2 people to 30 people in 5 years. So I think this is a very funny picture because it shows New York and Oslo from beyond. And the sizes look very similar, but when you come in closer, it's not that similar. We are all Snøhettas. We like to call us the same name. It's not one person that makes our projects. They are made in collaboration, and the team spirit and the team importance is one of the main characters for the people that we pick for working in Snøhetta. As we said, we have many different nationalities. We have counted around 17, also Polish, from all over the world. I think we missed something from South America and Australia, otherwise we have covered it. The team spirit and working around the tables, creating good atmospheres, trusting each other, that's a very important matter to Snøhetta, that people in creative processes also can rely on each other, not to be afraid of throwing stupid ideas on the table, because it might be a stupid idea that leads to a genius project in the end. These are the genius in Snøhetta. We had something we call Snow Lab, which was the experimental part of Snøhetta, where we were investigating analog, digital, reliance to the nature, and especially how you can find criteria, human criteria, and enter them into a computer and then try to digitalize it, and then try to form architecture out of it. It became some interesting projects, but nothing built it. And of course, the cultural exchange has always been important to Snøhetta, ever since we worked in Alexandria with the library. Here to the right, you can see our project leader for the cultural center in Saudi Arabia. She was a woman. That was quite challenging in this part of the world, but covered with the same clothes. She could always go as Saudi Arabian. And we were working very closely together with them, and our client was Saudi Aramco Oil, which is also an international company. And within their community, they also let women drive, they have women in the boards, they have female directors. So for them, it was a more open culture than normally Saudi Arabia would be. But of course, it was a challenge working with that kind of different culture to Norway. But we had 10 of their persons sitting in our office for 1.5 years. So we learned to know each other during that time, and of course made a lot of exchange during that period. It all began in the Middle East. In 1989, when they won the competition about the Library of Alexandria. It was actually a group of students, as many of you here, and in collaboration with some students in Los Angeles. So they won the competition very young, and of course with help from the World Foundation and also the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. It took a lot of years before it got realized. So in 2002 it opened officially, 21 years after, 11, how much was it? 11. But as you can see from the situation, the building is placed between the old city center and the modern Alexandria. And of course, it was related to the seventh wonder of the world, the old firehouse or lighthouse, and of course, the old library that burned down. So they had to try to embrace the site, find a typology that could consist both the present and the future, and then relate to something that's modern architecture. So they chose this round form to embrace the site, and they also chose this sloping roof towards the north to symbolize to the ground and to the sky the present, the past, and the future. The whole of the roof facing towards north is letting in light in the room, and it also gives a very light and lush atmosphere inside the big room. When it comes to the outside wall, that's a stone wall, quite heavy. That's also a collaboration with artists, which have decorated the whole wall with inscriptions, with different signs from all over the world. I think it's about 500 different signs altogether, and they are hand-carved by craftsmen, local craftsmen. So this was actually a part of the training, how to train local people with modern technology to create an art piece together with local handcraftsmanship and modern technology. These first projects, I'm just briefly going through them because you can see them in the exhibition, so I won't go very thoroughly here, but I have some other projects that I will present further to you. The next one, the Opera and Ballet in Oslo, Norway, finished in 2008. Maybe some of you have been there and seen it, or I know somebody has. Of course, this was one of our major projects after the Alexandria Library. And you might recognize some of the same form elements with the sloping roof. That's one of the inventions of Snøhetta, I would say, the fifth wall. And that's also that you can take into use the space as a public space. And of course, it's a kind of social democratic symbolic architecture. But we would like to phrase it also in the terms of the relations to the nature, to the water, and to the surroundings, because the height also limited the height of the opera building, not to make a barrier towards the scenery and the green surroundings of Oslo. We also like to have a reference to Norwegian nature and the sloping hills. The whole roof is created as a large art piece, covered in marble with different pieces, over 5,000 altogether, all hand-cut in Carrara and brought to Norway. And of course this is also created together with artists. It's a big art piece, and it has a resemblance to walking in the nature. So you have to look where you walk, otherwise you'll stumble and fall. And that's also the intention, that people should take this in use as they were in the nature. And luckily we see that people often take their Sunday walk on the roof of the opera. Who would have believed that? When you come to the interior, you will go from the more stony, cold outside. We are working a lot with light and materials, trying to minimize the number of materials, but trying to optimize how you can use the different materials. So once you come to the interior and the public auditorium, it's created with wood, which of course has a reference to the Norwegian nature, to warmth, to music, and to the inside of the instruments. Here is a picture from the roof when it's been taken in use of people. It's from an outdoor concert, so then you can practically not see the building. And of course on Sunday morning, when people are playing in the water and children running on the roof, that's how I would like to see the opera. And of course it attracts more people than would normally be called opera lovers, because now it's youth skating. I have a video that I might show with somebody going on a motorcycle across the opera, and of course that also inspires the opera to make their house more accessible to different kinds of people. And of course I had to have a night picture, so you can see how beautiful it is. The next project I'm going to say is the Memorial Pavilion on Ground Zero, New York, which of course happened after the terrible incident in 2001. Excuse me. And it has now a celebration for its 10 years anniversary. So now the outside of the building is open, but the interior will open 1 year later, next September. But of course, as you can see, it has been a huge and massive construction site. It's 27 meters down ground, filled with tubes and steel, and of course it's a huge area around it too. Our pavilion was won in competition, and it's only 5.5 square meters, 5,000. And it will contain an exhibition area and an information area. The whole memorial itself will be underneath the ground. And where you see the two large holes, that's the place where the two towers were standing. And our pavilion is in there, in the middle. And there will be waterfalls and a huge park covering this whole area. There's another architect that's responsible for the park and the underground memorial, so we have designed only the exhibition area. Also, one of the reminders of 2011 is that 2001 is two steel columns that we have kept from the main buildings. That's now part of the interior in the new buildings. There is more information out there. And also we had a new commission for Times Square, which we are now doing the refurbishment of the square, which is a very interesting task. So I'm going to say some about some of our projects. The first one is the Cultural Center in Iran in Saudi Arabia, where we also won a competition in 2008. And it's going to be finished next year, 2012, on the 12th of December at 12:12. Our client is Aramco Oil, one of the Al-Sibli, richest oil company in the world. And they wanted a cultural building to expose culture to the Saudi Arabian people. We won the competition, and it's also has been a long process, as I told you. They have been, the client has been sitting in our offices for 1.5 years. We are now close to a building above ground, so I will show you pictures later. But from the competition, one of the main ideas was creating some kind of illusion in the desert. It's a vast area, and also, of course, they wanted a monument, and we wanted to use materials and symbols from that area. So natural pebbles is what we have related to painting these forms and being the inspiration for the shape of the building. As you can see, the surroundings have one part that is covered as a park, and the other one is the museum itself. And the museum will contain, it's 78,000 square meters. It will contain exhibition areas, museums, and also the first cinema in Saudi Arabia that is both open to women and men, which is a good step forward. And of course, again, trying to create this kind of mirage feeling in the desert. We are always working with models, how to create the facades. We have to experiment, do some prototyping, 1-to-1 scale models or 1:1000. Here we have one model of the facade showing some of the scale, and of course also showing them real size. It's steel tubes covering the whole body, and then it's a glass facade behind that. And this is the key pebble that is connected to the bowl. And last here is a building from the building site. It's about 50 degrees, quite hot, and a lot of workers. And they have been digging this large hole in the desert. And of course now you can see, starting to see the steel constructions and the concrete constructions growing up. So we are very excited to see how this building will turn out in real life. I also wanted to show you a project from Norway called Ocean Space Center, which is located in Trondheim, which is in the middle of nowhere, or in Norway. This is a marine biology center. Norway has one of the foremost researchers on that area, and they are located in Trondheim, and they wanted to investigate a new building for their research department on the shore of Trondheim. This is a transformation area, and we had to make a master plan for that whole area, including showing how we could utilize also the technology and of course the marine expressions and transform that into architecture. So what we were working with were large-scale buildings, also with some reference to the oil rigs out on the North Sea, and of course with a lot of reference to the technology center in Trondheim. As you can see on the next picture, is hosting both research and administration, and also larger space for laboratories. And then out in the sea, they were made an extension. This is called a rotating lab, which was also energizing power. In these water holes, it's a lot of energy that I want to utilize, and also wanting to transform into a building. So what we did was to create a floating and pending laboratory station that could travel all around the world, being its own generator, and also being a laboratory that can be movable. So this is how it could look like. So it's meant to be up there in the fjord, transported by these large boats, traveling around the world, and being in front of the marine biology technology. And also, of course, with architectural references to the building on the shore, sailing in the sunset. Down to Middle East, maybe need to do some research on marine biology. Of course, when we're talking architecture, we all know that architecture is transforming. We have new tools, and we have changes in the architectures due to these new possibilities. So we like to speak about the analog, like making models, drawing with pen, do the thinking and speaking over the table. And of course the digital with the new tools, with the laser cutters, with the new 3D elements, and of course with robots, you have a lot more possibilities today than what you had only 10 years ago. So when it comes to analog and digital, if you think about the roof of the opera, all these different pieces, it could be folded on a paper sheet, or of course, as we did it on a machine computer, also trying to reach some kind of form that has a meaning, because digital itself doesn't contain any meaning. You have to add value to it. And of course, making sense of a space, as we were talking about. When you take a big site in the center and make it a public house, you should also make the space as most public as possible. So of course, that intention at the opera was working, and we're very happy that people are taking the house into use as intended. And of course, the digital analog. We have this light chandelier, shall I say, in our office. It's created by an architect student, very precise on the computer, every line measured, but it's made of thread and also plastic bags filled with water. Everybody had to fill 10 bags each, and then they were knotted up in the booth. And of course, it's been there for a couple of years, and we think it's beautiful, and we all feel part of it, because it's kind of teamwork, yet it's made on these digital instruments. And of course, as I spoke from Alexandria, with the analog digital, local handcraftship, we should never forget about the culture, where things come from, the ideas and the meanings behind things. They should also be added to the buildings. Only with technology, a building would have no meaning. And of course, 3D modeling. We see a lot of 3D modeling today which has no meaning, I would say. Just playing with forms, curves, and making maybe interesting shapes, but not always interesting architecture. So we try to at least make interesting architecture, combining 3D modeling also with 3D plotting, which has a more precise edge, and also of course laser cutting for finer materials, together with the handmade models. Our office is filled with models. We always work in models, and we think it's the best way communicating with each other and also communicating with the clients, because they don't understand always the way of digital models. The drawings might seem finished before they are finished, and we like to discuss and bring the client into the process so that the client feels that the project is as much his or hers than ours. It's a teamwork. Transpositions, that's also something we try to do. Naming that we have both architects, landscapes and interior architects, they all work together on the same projects. We try to wipe out the differences between the different disciplines and try to work as integrated as possible. And it's always in that connection between the different disciplines that new ideas, the best ideas, might occur. And of course, the robot, it's not as active as we hope that it should be. It's a 7-axis mill, and it sits on the robot and one on the table. And it's a CNC-driven mill, for those of you who are technical interested, which 24,000 rotations a minute. So it works very hard, very fast and very precise. And I would like to show you a very small project that we made use of this very closely. It's one of our smallest projects. It's a reindeer center in the Dovre with a viewpoint over Snøhetta. That's why they called us. We took references from the local architecture, which is quite square and simple, and also trying to shape our buildings from this to make some kind of connection with the traditional. And also with traditional art crafts, we also try to find the forms of the interiors of the building and the warmth of these handcrafts, the elements. It's a small pavilion, it's 75 square meters, not 1,000. And it's supposed to be used by groups of students, and also it's an observatory for musk oxen and reindeers in that area. There's quite a lot of them. And the frame is a very pure steel frame. You can hardly see it in the landscape, but it's that rusty box in the middle. And of course, here it's again taking into view the topography, the wind and the climate, and also trying to think about the interior of this building as it was eroded, from the ice line, eroded by water and stone. And then going inside and see what kind of reactions that would make to the different buildings. And then from this laser, you can then see how the interior will be shaped by this erosion. And then covered very simply in steel with the glass front. Then over to the digital. Testing out in models and also trying to do the shape as precise as possible, all hand carved into the wood with the steel box around it and with the reindeer inside it. Then it's out to the factories to see who can manufacture this, who can make this possible. So we went to the same manufacturer that made the balconies for the opera. It's actually a boat building factory, making boats in wood, and they had a machinery that could do these kinds of shapes with a large mill. And then we transported on a large van up to the mountain, and then installed in a steel frame, and then nearly finished, viewing Snøhetta in the background. And finally, with the glass and a small shelter and a viewpoint. And this was recently opened now in June. There has been a lot of studies of Snøhetta. How do you become so creative? What's the question behind it? And how do you work with creativity? So we have a group of people kind of investigating on Snøhetta's creativity, as well as some other larger groups, companies in Norway. One of them was Statoil, which is a big oil company, Thomsen, which is a law firm, and a bank, and another company, to try to find some principles for what is an idea and what makes a creative process happen. And of course, they found some resemblances. That was quite interesting actually, between especially architecture and searching for oil, because you have to use technology, you have to use intuition, you have to use time, creativity, patience, and also a lot of hard work. So they were observing us for around 1 year, this group of scientists from CITEF, and carried about with interviews of around 12 persons, and also studying how the competition process was going. And they found some creative drivers in Snøhetta, which they added up in this small little book that you might look at afterwards. But there are quite some interesting observations, also for us that have people looking from the outside on how we work. Feeling rightness. That's also something intuitive, comes from the stomach. When is a project right? Where does it sit like the last keystone in this goal? Because each of these stones are dependent on each other. And we want to see this as our people in the office. We are all keystones. If you take one piece away, then the other might collapse. So we are dependent on everybody in the group, and that everybody contributes, and also, of course, that last keystone. And of course, it's in that transition between the people and between the disciplines that we find some new ideas. That's the brokering images, also sharing ideas through images, not talking just architecture, but relating to other things in the nature or in the social life, of course. I also spoke about the prototyping experience, how you can transform analog ideas into prototyping and digital worlds, and how to materialize it afterwards. How to build a falling water, as you all know from Frank Lloyd Wright. Premature resistance. That also comes from what kind of resistance do you have in the project, because you have a lot of restrictions. It's not always like a vast desert. Of course, here it's one of our two opposite projects, showing on the bottom